I want you to imagine yourself in a beautiful tropical paradise. You're boating and fishing and hiking and enjoying the white sand beaches and the beautiful weather. Well, we want to get you the right underwater camera for that situation. But we're not going to take you there. We're going to take you here because you're actually on a staycation in Alberta. But we're going to fish and hike around and boat in this mud puddle here, and it's going to be gorgeous. So join us. We're going to show you the best underwater camera to take. Welcome back, DPReview.com viewers. I'm going to call you D-Peeps today, and we're out here to do a fishing show called DeliciousPikeReview.com.
No, we're doing it for Digital Photography Review, DP Review.
I guess we're doing a photography show, but we're going to fish in it today, and we're going to do it while my assistant brings the boat to the lake because, you know, Alberta's got its own beauty and its own charm. Now, today we're not going to do like a big in-depth technical review because the fact is these cameras aren't really highly technical cameras. They're point-and-shoot cameras. And you know, really, I think it's better to give you guys a buyer's guide. You know, if you're looking for an underwater camera, what are the nuances of each model? What are going to be the benefits of one over another? That's what we want to get across. We're looking at the Nikon W300 today as well as the Olympus TG-5 because those are two of the preeminent underwater cameras on the market. But I also want to show you a very low-cost budget option, the Fuji XP130 as well. We may even have a mystery camera for you later, so stay tuned. Here's another question I want to answer. Oh, that was a good cast. You know, with underwater cameras now on the market not really having been updated in major ways in the last few years, and with smartphones now taking comparable, if not better, photos at the wide angle, do we even still need underwater cameras? Is there really a place for them? And I still think the answer is a big yes. And I mean, here's why. I mean, first off, camera phones just don't have zooms, and it's really nice to have compression or keep some distance from your subject sometimes with the 4 or 5 times zooms that you'll find on these cameras. You know, on top of that, although smartphones now advertise that they're waterproof, they're definitely not rugged. You don't want to drop them, and I've sat on enough smartphones to pretty much put a bend in them and ensure that they're not exactly waterproof either. Whereas many of these cameras can go well underwater for snorkeling or even diving. And I know that if I'm hopefully not going to drop a camera off the boat today, but if I do, you know, a $200 camera, a $400 camera, I'm okay with that. I can live with that. Now, losing a $600 phone that has all of your history and all of your memories and all of your day-to-day activities like on there, that would be devastating. In fact, I know because I've done it multiple times. I've left it in taxi cabs in Hawaii, I've left it in hotel rooms in New York and all the rest. I've done it all. And that's a harrowing experience. I could live with a $250 camera in the water. So I still think that they're a very good choice to have. I apologize for the wind. It's going to be a windy day out here. You're going to hear some noise on the mics, and I'm trying to keep us away from shore so we don't crash, but I think I have a bit of time to talk about lenses on these cameras. Now here we've got the Nikon W300 and the Fuji XP130. Both these cameras have 5 times zooms, but there is a notable difference. At the wide angle, this is a 2.8 aperture, and then it goes to 4.9. The Fuji's a 3.9 aperture to 4.9, and that's going to become a big difference, especially when we then look at the Olympus. The TG-5 only has a 4 times zoom, same wide angle coverage, but it only goes up to about 100 mils equivalent. However, it's a 2.0 aperture at the 24 millimeter wide angle range, and then 4.9 at the telephoto. All 3 cameras comparable when you're shooting long, but this should give us a low light advantage when we're shooting wide. Another thing I want to talk about, first I can take off this bezel and put on wide angle and telephoto converters so I can increase the range, but also it puts it next to the LED light and the flash, and I can use attachments to then do macro close-ups with an LED light or soften my flash for close-up photography. It's a nice, clever idea, and it does enhance the capabilities of the camera. Oh, my cat. Oh. Woo! Just so you know, all the fishing we're doing today, catch and release, we're letting these fish go, and I always take the barbs off my hook just to make those releases a little bit easier so that we can sustain this beautiful fishery. Now, body design of these cameras is actually very similar. They're all very similar in size and weight now. On top of that, battery life on these cameras isn't stellar, but you kind of get what you pay for. The Fuji is going to be at the bottom with about 240 super rated shots. The Nikon's going to push slightly more at about 280 approximately. And then the Olympus TG-5 gives you 340, but I think it's because of a little bit of a point of contention that we have with these cameras. The Nikon and the Fuji have 920,000 dot LCDs on the back. I mean, it's pretty typical, nothing amazing, but the Olympus has half that resolution, and I think that's where the battery savings are partly coming. It might have been a strategic choice to keep the price down on the TG-5, seeing as how it's the most feature-rich camera, and unfortunately, in bright sunlight, although none of these cameras are stellar, the Olympus is particularly difficult to see. That's tough because a lot of the situations you're going to be using these cameras on are sunny, bright, beautiful days. So I've got a Fuji XP130 here, and have you ever wondered what it would be like to put a digital camera on the end of a fishing rod and chuck it out of there? Me too! Recording now, there's Jordan. And let's see what happens, and I'm sorry, you'll probably vomit from this shaky video. Hi-ya! Is it gonna catch a fish? I don't know. The audio is terrible. So we got some nice bright colors here, important if you drop the cameras in the water. I actually think the Olympus's red is the hardest to see, and that nice orange color on the Coolpix stands out very clearly. But you know, all good, all visual. I remember Nikon used to make a camouflage camera. That didn't last very long, probably for obvious reasons. They lost a lot. When it comes to putting these cameras underwater, it varies. I mean, the Nikon can go 100 feet, the Olympus can go 50 feet. I really don't know many people who are actually going to utilize that. If you're going deep underwater for diving, you're going to want a proper camera, a larger sensor, colored filters, and LED lights. You got to keep your seals clean. I mean, nobody ever talks about this, but you can't just put these cameras underwater and get grit and salt and all that kind of stuff forming on there, take it out, let it dry, and have those crystals form, because they can easily break the water seal. And then when you go in the next day for your trip, you might find that you have a waterlogged camera. So be diligent about cleaning those rubber seals, get any grit, any sand, any little fibers out of there, and you're gonna have a good time. All right, so I'm just having some fun here with the camera, shooting underwater. And you know, really, I didn't want to talk about image quality too much, but I have to talk about the Olympus's RAW capability and what they've done with the sensor here. So first off, 12 megapixel sensor, lower resolution, but frankly, for most vacation photos, you're just not gonna need higher resolution. Because I've got the RAW capability, I know I can deal with this hard contrast better than just a standard JPEG. I mean, way better. Surrounded by millions of my creepy crawly friends, you can probably see that through the camera here, but it gets me into some macro photography. So you can see I'm taking some pictures of gross bugs here. And you know, I tried all three. First off, I want to say they all have image stabilization in the lenses, optical, and that's great. I was surprised that the Fuji would have that because it's cheap. But by macro capability terms, the Fuji was by far the most disappointing. You just can't get that close. You can see it here. The Nikon, I like that they show you where you get the best macro, and it's sort of midway through the range, so you get a little bit more working distance. But the Olympus, again, it is by far the best. That lens gives you full telephoto capability, but still getting amazing macro, so you get good working distance. You don't have to get right in there and squish the bug with the camera. Oh man, the macro is so good. I think I may have just killed that bug. And on top of that, although it is a digital zoom, the microscope super zoom modes are a lot of fun to play with because you can crop and do very close-up kind of stuff. So overall, especially when you consider the other attachments, again, the Olympus wins, and again, the Fuji is the lowest price point.
Are we done?
Oh, I guess we caught fish. We can go back to shore. But I'm sure it's because the viewers don't want to see any more fishing, so that's why I'm stopping, okay?
And I don't want to see any more.
Yeah, and you don't want to see, yeah. We're going to get eaten alive by mosquitoes. You're going to wish we were back out on the boat here in 2 seconds. Jordan, you probably wish you were on shore again, I bet. Getting bitten like crazy out there. I want to give you guys a summary of the good and bad of these cameras, just a nice brief overview. First off, the Nikon Coolpix W300. I mean, it's a solid camera. I like the zoom range. I like the fact that there's only one door on there, and it certainly has a very easy to use interface. Buttons are large and easy to press, and I like the toggle to zoom, especially if you're using gloves. However, The camera, although it has 4K and a pretty decent 4K video feature there, and okay image quality, there's just nothing that's really setting it apart anymore. So unfortunately, although it's a good camera, it lags because the TG-5 is a similar price point, but so much better. Now the Olympus TG-5, well, we've got a lot to talk about. I mean, this is going to be the most feature-rich camera. Some limited manual control, the big one being the raw photography capability, and how it can handle difficult light, which you're often going to encounter when you're out on vacation. On top of that, the TG-5 has probably got the most complicated menu system. I mean, if you want something just simple and point and shoot, you might find this camera a little bit intimidating. More menus, more features to set up. The only downside I would really say about it, I'm not a big fan of dual doors. It's a lot to keep clean, so you gotta be diligent about that. But overall, if you're looking for the most capable underwater camera, the TG-5 is it, and frankly, at a very similar price point to the Nikon. And then you got the Fuji XP130. Well, I mean, the big advantage there, it's just really cheap. All right, so we're braving some mosquitoes here to get another shot, but we have this nice landscape, lots of contrast though. So I'm trying the Olympus, the Fuji, and the Nikon, and again, the edge has to go to the Olympus. I've got raw capability. I know I can bring those shadows up if I want, keep that sun down a little bit. But the Nikon actually did a pretty good job because you've got active D-lighting to try to control that contrast. You can see here, it's not bad. The Fuji though, it's such a simplistic menu. There's just nothing I can do creatively to try to control that contrast. So keep that in mind. That sky's gone no matter what I do. Hey, did that package arrive? Oh, the camera's there? Okay, perfect. We're gonna go pick it up right away. Okay, thanks. All right, see you soon. Bye. Okay, so we go from a very hot, dry, summery day in Alberta to this. It's about to rain and pour and it's very humid, but that's Alberta. But that's okay because our package has arrived and look what we have. We've got a pre-production Panasonic TS7. Now, a new underwater camera from Panasonic's been a long time coming, many, many years, but here it is, and the TS7 is quite a departure from some of the other underwater cameras. Although at the heart of it, you've got a really big, chunky body. It does have a good grip though, and the biggest shutter button I've ever seen. Very similar crush-proof, freeze-proof, and depth-proof ratings. I mean, I think we're past all that. The real kind of interesting thing on this camera, it has an EVF. I don't know how useful that is on an underwater camera, but we're gonna come back to the TS7 and kind of throw it into the buyer's guide. It'll be out shortly, so this might be something you wanna look at. Obviously, these cameras are waterproof. They keep water out of the cameras, but the problem with that is they also trap humid air inside the camera. There are the doors open, humid air goes inside, and when I close it and then dive into those blue waters in the tropical paradises that I'm visiting, because it's colder, the air condenses and I get moisture inside my lens and all the internals. Obviously a bad thing. Here's what you do. Pop the camera door open, get yourself a Ziploc bag, fill it with tons of silica gel, and put the camera in there with the door open and zip that puppy up. That way it wicks all the moisture out. When you're ready to shoot, you close the door, you trap dry air inside. When you go underwater into the colder environment, you're not gonna get that condensation.
Chris, the packaging says not to eat those.
I want to talk about some universal downsides that we're actually finding across all four cameras. Now, first off, when you're recording video clips, the internal microphones on these cameras are not great. Underwater, you just get a weird noise. And of course, as you're holding the camera, any zooming, focusing, or your fingers on the body, it's going to pick up on the video, unfortunately. Another big thing that we found is flare is an issue, probably because of the extra elements in front of the lens to protect it. So if you're pointing anywhere near the sun, to some degree or another, you're gonna get some weird flare. Some of the cameras are worse than others. The Olympus definitely had quite a bit of chromatic aberration, as you can see here, but again, be cautious. Avoid trying to point these cameras right at the sun or expecting to get a lot of pink and green. Now, the Panasonic TS7, we don't have final firmware, so we're not gonna be looking at images and image quality today, but don't worry, DPReview.com has a full buyer's guide plan to be coming out. It's gonna give you all the technical information you're looking for. That should be out shortly. But I do want to touch on some notable features to look forward to when this camera comes out. Some good, some not so good. The lens, first off, it's a 4.6 times zoom, but it starts at a 28mm wide angle 35mm equivalent. And so that's not as good as the 24-25mm lenses you're going to find in some of the other cameras. On top of that, it's a 3.3 to 5.9 aperture, so we're back down to one of the slower apertures in the bunch. Now, there are a few standout features though, and so the first one, EVF. The magnification is though a little bit low, below 50%. It's 1.17 million dots, but you are paying a price premium to get that. Other interesting feature that I like, it's got a new 20 megapixel backside illuminated CMOS chip, so I'm excited to see what kind of image quality that will produce, but it doesn't shoot RAW. The last thing that I do like though, this is a Panasonic camera, so we get their 4K photo modes, and that's pretty awesome. I especially like the pre-burst, and it should help you get those moments, those fast action moments that you're trying to capture. Keep in mind the Nikon W300's burst mode is only at 1 megapixel, so it's very low resolution. But the Olympus TG-5 also has a ProCap mode. It works fantastic, and it does capture RAW photos in that ProCap mode. Now, when it comes to video on these cameras, starting with the Fuji XP130, it's the lowest price point, so as to be expected, it is the lowest end video capabilities. But you're getting decent 1080 quality video, and if you want to do slow-mo, you get 60 frames per second at 1080. Now, when you go to the W300, you do get a big step up because now we're into 4K resolution. And if you want to do some slow-mo, you get 60 frames per second at 1080, and you can do 120 frames per second super slow-mo, but it's at 480 lines of resolution. It looks quite soft. The Olympus TG-5 does give you a lot though for your money. The 4K footage is sharper than the Nikon W300, especially in low light. And as for slow-mo, you get 1080 at 60 frames per second, but you also get 1080 at 120 frames per second. Now, with Panasonic and the TS7, we expected to have really nice video features out of this. We can't test the video quality yet, but it is 4K resolution. But when it comes to slow-mo, they're only giving you 1080 at 60 frames per second. If you go to 120 frames per second, you're down to 720p resolution. So surprisingly, from Olympus, they have the nicest video capabilities of all the underwater cameras so far. Okay, so how I want to end this now today is really kind of to talk about who these cameras are best suited for. So starting with the Fuji XP130, yes, it has the lowest end feature set. You've seen that today, but the image quality is comparable to the other cameras. It's very simple to use, and you've got nice connectivity, and the price is the best part about it. It's half the price of some of these other cameras. And so I think this is a great camera for somebody who just wants a simple beat up camera. They don't want to do a lot of creative photography. They just want it nice and easy. It's also perfect for children, so that you have a camera, you're not worried about them breaking or losing. Now, if you look at the Nikon W300, it's a decent performing camera. I like the lens, we've got okay image quality, it does have some decent video features, and I like the way it handles. It's a great interface. My biggest problem with the W300 is just it's at a price point where it's too close to the Olympus TG-5, which is such a better camera. If the Nikon W300 comes down in a price point closer to the Fuji XP130, then I would take a serious look at it. Now, when it comes to the Olympus TG-5, well, they just hit it out of the park with this camera. They give you a lot in there for your money. It is by far the most creative camera. It's got a fast lens, the best low light performance, but really for me, the thing that keeps coming back to is that raw photography capability. You know, when I first started doing this, this whole test with all the underwater cameras, I figured people aren't gonna care, JPEG's all they want, these are just quick point and shoots. But the fact is, the raw features unlock better low light performance, the ability to deal with a lot of the contrasty light that you are going to encounter in travel situations. And as a photographer myself, it did give me some creative outlet to have a bit more fun with my photography, maybe get photos that I'm going to treasure when I get home. So I would say the TG-5 is excellent for anybody. The only people that I would say might want to avoid it are people who don't want to get into creative control, want to keep it simple, or people on a budget. Now, as for the Panasonic TS7, this camera does hold some promise. I mean, the EVF is a tricky one. Is it good? Is it not good? I think you have to really consider what you're going to mostly shoot when you travel. If you are doing a lot of underwater stuff, the EVF isn't going to be that big a deal. But keep in mind that a lot of you are going to travel and only spend a short amount of time in the pool or the ocean. And in that case, the EVF actually might be a really important feature to have. I'm excited to see what that new sensor is going to do as well, but at the same time, I have to be honest with you, I'm a little skeptical of where the TS7 is going to fit in the whole scheme of things. It's going to be the most expensive camera, and again, we don't get raw photography, and the lens is nothing particularly well to write home about. So we're going to wait and see for that. Again, don't worry, stay tuned, because DPReview.com is going to have a more in-depth buyer's guide coming out soon. You're going to want to check that out. Anyways, I hope you found this helpful, and again, don't forget to leave comments below. Please subscribe to the channel. Get us up there. We're getting close to 100,000, and we need your help to do it. And on top of that, check out our Twitter, check out our Instagram feeds. Let us know what you think and feel. Otherwise, till next time, we'll see you soon.